Okay, guys, so I know that I'm a little late with the story sharing video. I wanted to get this out, but I kind of got delayed with a lot of stuff this weekend. So here we go. I want to talk about this. I was surprised. I apparently have not talked about this story in my story sharing video series yet, but I know I did a whole video about it, and I will put the link in the upper right hand corner of the screen right now so that you can see it. But I want to talk today about my Warhammer 40k story, the Basilisk Legion, or the Lost Legion, as I also called it. Will I ever finish this story? Well, I'll answer that at the end. But what's it about? It's basically, here's the thing. So, I got into Warhammer 40k because of my brother. I had seen a lot of the memes online. I'd seen a lot of Space Marine art and all that kind of stuff. I knew that Warhammer 40k existed, but I didn't know anything about it. My brother really worked to get me into it. He introduced me to some of the meme stuff. He introduced me to if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device. He introduced me to a lot of different things to get me really hooked into the world of Warhammer 40k. And now I will profess myself a fan. I know the basics of the world, I would say. I know the basics of the different factions. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in any capacity. I don't know everything about everything. I'm not Major Kill or Danny Fortuna or anyone like that. I'm not a lore expert, but I feel safe in saying I know the basics. Well, I thought about writing about my own Primarch, one of the lost Primarchs, because from what I learned, there were 20 Primarchs total, and 2 of them were considered lost. And Lark explained to me the reason there are these 2 Primarchs is so that fans could create their own original Primarchs and Space Marine legions and chapters and such like that. So kind of give the fans their own creative liberty. So I said, well, let's have some fun. I'd like to make my own Primarch, and I'd like to make it a female. Now, the first thing that everyone thinks whenever I bring this up is, Raven, you know there are no female Primarchs, right? Everyone says that, and I know that. I'm very well aware of it. I'm not at all trying to say that my female Primarch should be or could be canon. I'm just saying I wanted to have some creative fun with it. So I went along with the idea that there could have been a female Primarch, a daughter of the Emperor, if you will. And I tried to make it connect as much to the lore as I possibly could, despite knowing that there would be a lot of issues with it. So I created her. She is the Primarch of the 11th Legion. Her name is Naja Aldmera. My whole story around her, and again, you can hear the full detailed story about her in the video that I linked a minute ago, but I can give you the basic rundown. My idea was that I wanted to create a Primarch who was a strong character, but had a different outlook than some of the other Primarchs. With all the other Primarchs, a lot of them just enjoy the crusade for the sake of combat. Some of them truly believe in the Emperor's dreams. Some of them believe in this and that. I wanted a character who believed in the peace that the Emperor was promising. Because for her, she'd seen a lot of combat on the world that she'd grown up on, and she wanted to see mankind in a peaceful society, and she was prepared to fight for that. I also wanted to create a warrior who had more of a tend toward ancient Greece or Egyptian feel, particularly on the Greece side, because I modeled her appearance and abilities very much off of Gorgons. She has snake-like eyes. Her legion is known as the Basilisk Legion. All of her Astartes are female and have snake-like eyes. And I ran with a little bit of a theme that they also, a lot like Sanguinius's boys, the Blood Angels, they have a gene seed deficiency where they may have quite a few psychers, but if the psychers overuse their warp power or don't protect themselves properly, when they may have a warp overload and it may backlash and turn their bodies to stone. And Naja didn't know about this gene seed deficiency, and she's very upset about it when she learns about it and wants to hide it because she doesn't know how the Emperor will feel about it. As far as her relationship to the Emperor, she loves him as a father. She thinks that he's the greatest, most wise individual in the entire galaxy, and he plans to bring peace to the stars and place humanity at the top of the pecking order, and she's all about that. She's totally down for that. She leads her Basilisk Legion on mostly shock trooper style combat. They basically run in, hit, pull back, heal up a little bit, then go in, hit, pull back a little bit, kind of that kind of fighting force. There are quite a few psychers in there, but they're also pretty adept in mid-range combat. Close range is where they tend to suffer a little bit. They don't have a lot of close range fighters, or at least not a great deal of close range proficiency, because they are considered a physically weaker legion among the other legions of the Astartes. I also wanted to build up her relationship to her brothers. I thought that'd be kind of interesting if she were a positive voice in Horus Lupercal's ear, before he was corrupted by chaos. Like she saw him as her big brother, like the guy who, could do no wrong. She really looked up to him. And that was one of the reasons why Erebus, when he starts preparing for the eventual chaotic takeover, when it's ousted by Perturabo that she has a gene T deficiency in her Astartes, he recommends, Erebus recommends, why don't you go to the warp and look for a cure? Because he wants her out of the way and in the warp while Horus is being corrupted. Because the last thing Horus needs while he's being corrupted is a positive, influential voice in his ear like Naja's. Because Naja is very supportive. She is a very positive, motherly Primarch. And that's something that I always think is interesting. That's one of the reasons I want to make a female Primarch. Because one thing that I think is important for men, for young men especially, and not to say that, I think the Primarchs are young men by any means, but I'm just talking about with men in general. It is very helpful to have a feminine, maternal person in their life. Someone who is not only compassionate, but also nurturing. The Primarchs have the capacity to be compassionate, but nurturing can be difficult for them. And I saw Naja as a potential nurturing individual. Someone who wants to make others feel better, wants to make them reach their full potential by encouraging, by standing by their side, by holding their hand, she wants to assist. And that doesn't make her the strongest in combat, but it does make her someone that others can rely on. So some of the other Primarchs looked at her with reverence, like, Naja may not be the strongest of us, but she's someone that we can rely on and enjoy being around. Not to say that she's not a warrior in her own right. I even had this funny idea where when Leman Russ first meets her, he kind of scoffs at the idea of this young woman being a Primarch like them. She wants to prove herself and says, all right, what do I need to do to prove it to you? And he kind of taps his own cheek like, hit me in the face. Go ahead, show me how strong you are. So she obliges and punches him so hard in the face, it reels him backward, which turns into a brawl. And so I thought that would be very funny. So yeah, I had a great deal of fun designing who she was, but my goal with Naja was to lean less on the side of her being a strong woman who can do no wrong. I wanted her to be a more nurturing, compassionate individual, which, yeah, doesn't make her the best warrior, but makes her a unique individual to place into the Warhammer 40k world. But that also makes it harder when she finally does come back from the warp, because as those of you who are fans of Warhammer 40k know, the time in the warp doesn't work the same way. So it's now like 1,000 years have passed. She's come back out of the warp, and she feels like it's only been like a few centuries. She comes out, and now the Imperium of Man is a fractured, broken fragment of its former self, and all these enemies of the galaxy are closing in on it, and it's barely holding on by a thread. And she comes back in, and her first thought is, well, I need to make this right, And she finds it very difficult to make the right decisions. Like, for example, she goes back to her home, territory where Tyranids are attacking planets around hers. And she thinks, all right, well, let's just go down and fight the Tyranids as we've always done. Let's fight the Tyranids and kick their butts. That's what we do. But those who know the Tyranids, like the other Space Marine chapters and Inquisitors and others who have fought the Tyranids, they go, it's not going to work. They've already sunk their claws in too deep. We need to exterminatus the planet. And her argument is, no, there are still humans on that planet, and we need to protect humans. Let's go down and fight. So she runs in, gets into the thick of it, starts fighting. She thinks they're doing well, only to find out they've barely made a dent in the Tyranids' numbers. And so they pull back. She's been injured by a Tyranid. Some of her daughters are dead. And she realizes just how much of a big problem it is. And she's reminded again, you need to declare exterminatus on this planet. There's nothing else we can do. And so she finds that very hard for her to do because, again, she's very compassionate. She's nurturing. She genuinely loves humanity and loves people. She kind of has a heart like Vulcan. She wants the best for people, and so the idea that she would declare exterminatus on worlds to defend them from the Tyranids or to stop the Tyranids' growth is heartbreaking for her. So it becomes very difficult for her, and she has to make those really hard decisions. Also, I think that another thing that's going to be unique about her that I thought about is, again, since she cares about people, she wouldn't see the traitor Primarchs as necessarily gone for good. One of her motivations would probably be to try to find them and reach them and bring them back, even though Gilliman's kind of telling her there's no point. A lot of them have made their choice, you can if Father couldn't convince them, and I couldn't convince them, and Sanguinius couldn't convince them, if none of us could do it, what makes you think you're going to have any luck? And she points out, probably not. I'm probably not going to have any luck, but if I don't even try, then, and that's the thing. Her story's kind of a sad one, and no, I haven't written the conclusion yet to it. I haven't decided where exactly I want to go with the story. Her story's a sad one because she is a hopeless romantic. She's a hopeless, naive child facing the darkness of this world and having to learn that she can't approach it the same way she always does. Yes, there's a place for hope, there's a place for nurturing, there's a place for compassion, but she can't solve all of her problems and still maintain that naivete. So it's going to be very tragic for her. This is an example of Shakespearean tragedy to its highest. A person who wants the best, but is learning she can't give it. You know, it's one of those things. In fact, I even wrote out a short little thing where she meets the emperor again after all this time and sees him on a throne, and she privately tells him off, like, this is all your fault. How could you do this? Like, so much of this is your fault because you didn't tell us what was out there. You kept this from us. And then the emperor argues back, like, you're right, I probably could have told you, but what, like, and then, like, they have a back and forth, and I wrote something like that. It was kind of fun. But again, I want to say this, two things, and then I'll wrap up. Number one, I am very much aware that this couldn't work. So anyone about to go to the comment section right now and do what they did before and say, like, you obviously don't know that the Primarchs are all male, or the Lord just would not allow for female Primarchs or Astartes. I know, I am aware. I did the video with Danny Fortuna, didn't I? I'm very well aware that this could not work in the current canon or lore, which is why this isn't canon or lore. I'm not trying to make it canon or lore. I'm just doing it for fun. The second thing, I probably will not finish the story. Even though I wrote the first 3 chapters of the story and I enjoyed it, I find it a lot more fun to just kind of picture different battles and circumstances for her in my head. Plus, with all the people telling me, you can't do this in Warhammer 40k, it's not canon, it feels like I shouldn't even bother trying to write it since a lot of people are going to give me a lot of pushback on it anyway. I know that upsets Hannah because Hannah really likes Nadja. She's the one who drew the Nadja image and the Basilisk Legion logo. So I feel bad to disappoint her and to disappoint anyone who actually liked it, but it doesn't feel like it's something that I should really push because I know that if I were to try to push it and try to write it, the big thing that's going to happen is people are going to say, you know this can't work, right? Yeah, I know. I get it. And no disrespect meant to anybody. I get it. If you're a hardcore 40k fan and just the idea of a female Primarch or female Astartes chapter just does not work for you, you don't like that at all, I get it and totally understand, and I'm with you on that. I would not expect Games Workshop or anyone to try to force that as canon. I'm not trying to force Nadja as canon. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun and experiment. Besides, I think I created her before I knew all the details as to why there couldn't be a female Primarch, so I wasn't going in with all that knowledge. Now that I have that knowledge, I wonder if I even would have created her. I like to think I probably would have, just for creative expediency anyway, just for the fun of it, just to sort of say, hey, I want to try something new. But at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to say. But I wanted to share this one anyway, even though I technically already talked about it in more detail, because it's another story idea that I came up with and I found very enjoyable to work on. If you want to know more about it, again, I shared a video that y'all can go watch and get more of an idea. I didn't want to make a Mary Sue character, I just wanted to make a new character that I thought might be interesting to place in the world of Warhammer 40k. That's all I really wanted to do. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know down in the comment section down below. I really love it when people watch these videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.